All right, folks, welcome back to the Fitz News Studios for another edition of FITSPolitic, the live political talk show. We started it just this year. Super excited about tonight's guest. But first, I want to introduce myself, Will Folks, owner, founding editor of Fitz News. I'll be hosting the show tonight. And behind the board, the motherboard, I don't know what the hell we call the thing, but Dylan Nolan, our director of special projects. And by the way, if you've got questions or comments or thoughts, Dylan will be the repository of those for this evening's show. So
throw them in the comments. I'll be reading them.
There you go. Anything you want to ask Paul Dans and his beautiful wife, Mary Helen Bowers, send them to Dylan. But Paul Dans, you've been in our studio before, but this is the first time that we have been graced by, and I got to say, people say the better half all the time. That does not exactly, I mean, this is so far above, man. I mean, so, but first of all, I want to thank you for
great
us.
To be with you again.
But Mary Helen, you in particular, thank you for doing this. I know that this is, you are, tell us how far along.
We're getting pretty far through the third trimester. So I've got a couple more weeks here. A little later in March is the due date, but you know how that goes. You don't know until you know. So happy to be with you guys, and we're big fans.
Absolutely. So I gotta, she's in the like hate everybody phase of this.
Well, we're getting there. This is baby number 5.
And you've got her on the campaign trail. Yeah. So
no, it's when she goes into nesting mode, and that's a thing that dads pick up. She is my better half, better 1.5 right now, maybe better 1 7/8. But no, we're blessed to have the kids, and this is really what it's all about. This is faith, family, freedom, and the family is the centerpiece of American life, and should be. It's always been, and it's always going to be, and we have to fight for it. So we live our values, and we're blessed to have healthy kids, and we're praying for this next one. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl.
Oh wow!
So we have 3 girls already, babe, and we have a little pirate, a 4-year-old. We have 12, 10, 8, and soon to be 9. She coming up on her birthday, 4-year-old and baby here. So,
one of the things that impressed me about when you announced last summer, very hot day in the old Exchange building down in Charleston, South Carolina. But one of the things that really impressed me, I think both of you mentioned it, Mary Helen, when you introduced your husband, and then Paul, when you addressed the crowd of supporters there, you talked about how you guys were invested in the future of this country through your family. And the contrast, obviously, is, I believe you referred to him as a childless warmonger, Senator Lindsey Graham, but
you left out the 70-year-old part.
Right, there you go. But I guess walk us through, and Mary Helen, you too, how critical that component is to your candidacy.
It's the whole reason I'm doing this for everyone's kids, my kids, their future kids, our generation. We have a stake in the future of this great state and this country. This is the next generation's inheritance. We're just the stewards right now. So you contrast that with somebody like Lindsey Graham, who does not have a stake. He's really just building his legacy, if you will. And that explains why he has no focus on the problems here at home. I want to focus us once again on this great state, fixing the problems, fixing the roads, fixing the people, stopping the opioids, building a 21st century economy. He's off there, pushing for war, and he'll make, very things no dad or mom can imagine, saying like, well, it's worth the trade-off of X number of American soldiers to achieve whatever objective they want in some far off country. It's like, well, we're driving here tonight and we get the news our daughter number 3 has 104-degree fever. That's kind of just regular par for the course as a parent, but that's all day long, all lifelong, you're nurturing other people. And that's the point of being, a family, that there's something greater than yourself. Maybe you're taking care of a parent, maybe children, or even a neighbor, but there's something outside yourself. So that's what the importance of this is, stewarding for the next generation.
Yeah. Marilyn, you feel the same way?
Absolutely. I think that Paul defined it really well when he explains that the hit on Lindsey Graham isn't that he's just childless. It's that he is a warmonger, that he has no stake in the future. You can see from the way he talks about our state, from the time he spends here, he's never around. He doesn't think about us. He doesn't work for us. He doesn't fight for us. He doesn't bring as Paul would say, the bacon home for the people of South Carolina. I think it's so important to have a fighter, to have a warrior who puts America first in the United States Senate, and to put an end to this weird humiliation that I think most of us in South Carolina feel being represented by a person like Lindsey Graham. He's never had a viable challenger. And so I'm so proud of Paul and proud to stand, beside him in this battle to return this Senate seat back to the people of South Carolina, because that is his passion. That is his drive. He is all about making our country better, making our state better. And, it's not just our children, it's yours, one day Dylan's, like the grandkids, all of it, and our seniors too. But when you don't have that anchor, and you just don't have that weight at home,
it's life
it's
experience.
A disaster.
It's ultimately, I pay the bills. I get those healthcare bills. The premiums are out of control. Insurance costs, car insurance, home insurance. Go to the grocery store. You see how expensive life is. We wait in the same traffic as everybody else. We come home and to our kids and try to deprogram them from school and hear about the next, kind of outrage, and have to fight these battles getting poured out of the libraries. Whoever would have imagined this would be going on? But, it wasn't there when I was a kid. And this grew up when one man was on the watch, and that's Lindsey Graham. 32 years in Washington. We had the flood of illegals, 20 million come in. We had, the whole country kind of go to pot. Our infrastructure here is ossified. It's basically frozen in the 80s and has never been brought to forward. So I'm here to really plan for the 21st century Carolina that we all deserve. And that's putting the state back to its roots. And we'll talk about it. But look, I want to make this a centerpiece of technological innovation, but agriculture, 21st century. We're going to bring back the king, cotton. We're going to do steel again here. We're never going to be a world power until we start making our own steel again. And there's every reason we should be doing that here in South Carolina. And, forest products, these are the staples that define the state for the last 250 years. They're going to be the ones that propel it forward. And I'm going to be the advocate in Washington, making sure we get this done.
Well, we've got so many questions on so many issues related not only to this campaign, but I wanted to start, though, with y'all's story. Because when we were talking before the show, and I was telling you one of the things that happens when I go out with my wife, who also very beautiful, people are like, how in the hell did that happen? And so I think in your case, I mean, let's hear the origin story. How'd you two meet?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably my greatest career accomplishment, and it should be really, your spouse, this is God's plan, to become one. And, I think it's really difficult for this generation now because of all the tech and kind of isolation of how they've been raised. But we were blessed. She hit on me at the gym, basically. Now, Mary Helen is a famous ballerina. For those who don't know, she's a Carolina girl. Another big distinguishing characteristic between myself and Lindsey. I'm a Carolina girl, best in the world type guy. And, Lindsey parts company on that. But, we met. She is a prodigy in ballet. She went up to New York City at age 15, recruited there by the New York City Ballet School of American Ballet, asked to become a pro. She probably does a better rendition of it, but she was accepted into the company at age 16, started working 70-hour weeks. This is the pinnacle of the dance world. So, you imagine millions of girls around the U.S. start ballet.
It's like the NFL.
It's beyond the NFL. It's almost like, starting lineup in whatever the All-Star game, Pro Bowl.
That's awesome.
Maybe 4 a year get asked into the company. So this is serious business, and she took to it. But it also, I for my part was, I'll tell you more about my background. MIT guy, public schools. Mom was a school teacher. Basically, took a wrong turn in life. Went to law school. University of Virginia Law School, core conservative, but came out like these kids do with a massive debt, and headed up to New York City to try to pay off some of this stuff. And was, in that city of blue, I met the Carolina girl. And she came after me This is
maybe dancers.
Okay, well, here, let me just tell you, if this ever gets serious, I'll tell you the secret of the whole thing. And dancers may know this. She came after me not for my politics, but for my feet.
Your feet?
Yes.
All right.
So you want to tell them?
Okay, we got to hear this.
The foot story. But
Dylan's got an interesting expression. We got to hear this.
It's true. Paul has beautiful ballet feet, and we always joke about it. It's the foundation of the marriage. So we're training, we're working out. I'm doing my cross training. Now I run a business. It's called Ballet Beautiful. It's all about ballet inspired fitness and exercise and women and strength, grace, elegance. But at the time, dancing with New York City Ballet, I'm training. I'm doing some cross training at the gym. I'm in a spin class, and I see this cute guy in there. I leave a little bit early because I had an injury I was recovering from, and I'm stretching, and he's kind of hanging out.
She has one leg at 180. When she says stretching, it's not like a normal
person. It's true. It's not really a normal stretch, but I'm stretching. I'm cooling down. I see this kind of cute guy. I'm in the ballet studio across the hall from the spin studio, and he's kind of hanging out in the hall by himself, doing a stretch, not similar at all. I don't know. You're probably stretching your hamstring or something, sort of pedestrian. Yeah. But I'm like, oh, he's really cute. I'm going to go stretch outside. So I open the studio door and I come outside, and I was wearing, one of my brothers went to Carolina Law School, UNC. So I had on a sweatshirt that said Carolina Law, and Paul says to me, "Oh, are you a lawyer?"
It was a weak pickup line. It was weak. It was obvious. It got the job done. It broke the ice. But
so he asked me if I'm a lawyer, and I said, "No, I'm a ballerina." And his ears perk up. I don't know if you'd ever met a ballerina before. And I tell him I'm dancing with New York City Ballet. Oh, my brother went to law school. He tells me he went to MIT. I'm intrigued. He went to UVA Law School, even more. And so at the time I was teaching a class at Reebok Sports Club called gyrokinesis, because I was interested in fitness and in the concept of cross training, which is my business now, really is this fitness ballet inspired lifestyle. And I ended up creating ultimately my own workout. But at the time I was using this other workout. It was very hippie. It's kind of like a very hippie version of Pilates.
Basically, she's teaching this course. And for the guys, she invites me to go to the course. It's 7 in the morning. And this is kind of like the stuff you don't tell your guy friends that you do, but you have to kind of do the thing. So I end up going to this course in the morning, and it's like some geriatric quasi yoga thing I never would repeat, but she's teaching it, and I go there. There's another, this is a.
It was hippie.
But you actually.
I was teaching it.
He caught your eye. You tell me he caught your eye, and you were kind of.
A little bit. I mean, I went out there, and
because that's not how I expected that story to go.
This is what happens. So I do the course, the class, and it's older people and her really good looking friend, the other conservative ballerina.
Yeah, my best friend from the ballet.
So this is a pretty rare streak of people to trip across in 8 million. And I walk out after the class, and then she comes out, and I just remember these doors flopping open, and she goes, "You have the most beautiful feet." And I was like, what?
We remember it a little differently.
I have a different memory, but I'm like, this is going to be interesting. Like if I had known that the dancers looked at people's feet, I would have been walking around barefoot long ago.
So his pickup line was, I went to MIT. Yours was, you've got really beautiful feet.
No.
I guess if you want to really boil it down, I remember leaving the class.
So who made the first move?
So this is where it goes from there. I remember leaving the studio. I'm sitting down. I'm stretching outside with my friend Laura, who was total hottie. Absolutely gorgeous, very conservative, love her. We're still really good friends. And Paul joins us, and I say to him, "You have really beautiful feet," because he has these crazy insteps. And Laura's like, "You do."
The boots off here, Dylan.
That's probably the pay for view. You're gonna have to do that on the subscription.
It's true.
Subscription service.
And it's not. Let me just say, it's not a weird kink thing. It's an actual, like, this is. In ballet, your feet are everything. They complete the line. I have a very high arch. Paul has a very, very high instep. And so ballerinas, this is just the way it is. You're always looking at the feet.
Yeah.
Paul's are great. And so
you passed the test, man.
He left. We said goodbye, whatever. I'm still stretching. He comes back up the stairs, and he says, I just want to let you know, like next week, I think it was Good Friday, because this was before Easter. I'm going to miss your class. I have to go see my mom, which I thought was so sweet. Oh, he's visiting his mom. And there was some other guy that was up there hitting on me. I wasn't interested in him. And I said, thanks or whatever. Paul left. I saw him again, maybe a week later. No, not the next week, because it was Good Friday. I see him again at the gym, and he asked me out, and I got really nervous. And I said, that sounds really fun. He was like, let's go get a coffee sometime or something. I got really nervous. And I said, that sounds great. And I just basically ran away because I was nervous. And then I see him a third time.
Wow.
Right? I think.
Yeah.
And the third time I went to him and I said, how about that coffee?
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is, how do you get the ballerina? Like, look, I was in very good shape. I have the dad bod right now.
You know, she's posted a picture or two of you on her socials.
Have you seen him mogging?
I've seen one.
It's pretty awesome.
I was called the manimal back in law school, if you will. But it's important. At that time, most of the Generation Xers were not taking care of themselves the way the kids do now. It's so important for our health, and we were attracted obviously because we were both very fit, and I think it's important. It's difficult for this next generation to meet right now, and it's just bizarre. But that's how we did in the old days, kids. We actually had a roll up on
brother. Whatever happened and however it happened.
Thank you.
God.
Well, there was I had some game. I had some game. Look, I like to say, people go, how do you meet a ballerina? And I was like, practice. I get in trouble with that one.
But the point of the feet is the feet. We later had children. We get married. We have children, and our daughters all have, they love to dance. They love ballet, and they have the most beautiful ballet feet maybe that you've ever seen.
Well, we call her Mama Swan back home because
it all worked out.
So she was just scouting you for what you could bring to the gene pool.
I was just completely a mate. It was just
yes, pretty much
a piece of meat.
Wait till you see the ultrasound. We did an ultrasound of the baby last week.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, the only photo we got is the foot, which to me was hilarious, perfect. And I'm like, trying to decipher, does the kid have the arch?
It's an amazing moment, isn't it, though? That first, I remember the first, I mean, I've obviously done this a few times also, but the first time when you see that heartbeat, you feel that kick.
It's so powerful. Ultrasound, awesome. Obviously, we are very pro-life, but, more than that, we're pro-creators. It's like, that's another Lindsey thing. He gets up there, it's like, bro, there's one person who probably needs to sit this out. It's like a 70-year-old child, this guy, because, you've never actually been in an OB-GYN office. Like, you never dealt, living with a woman is kind of an important prerequisite.
Well, let's talk about his priorities and where they lie, because this week there's been a ton of pushback against him because he obviously went over to Israel recently, gave a speech about how he goes there every 2 weeks.
Whether he needs to or not.
And a lot of folks have said, well, wait a minute, don't you have some folks you're supposed to be representing here in the United States? What'd you think, Paul, when you heard that?
Look, it's a continuation of his entire career, which was leaving South Carolina long ago. He's about they, them, and I'm about us. And it shows up. Unfortunately, our state, has been grossly neglected. The roads are just the physical manifestation. 50 out of 50, they're killer roads. But the fact that our youth are running around with opioids, 50 people dying a day, that's the sort of war he should be concentrating on. But instead, he tells you he's going off to plan the wars of the future on foreign soil. And like I say, very callously doing some calculus about, we're going to sacrifice X number of American soldiers, but it'd be worth it. And it was like, would you please define what worth it is, for what aim? And, if this were one time, it might be allowable, but this is every war, every time. He's just fresh off of Ukraine, and he's stopping the president from finding a peace there. Millions of people are grinding themselves. Look, I'm the first guy to say we need to fight and have the most kick-ass military and keep danger on the other side of the ocean. But when you're fighting every time, and now we're losing, we have to be real about this stuff. Afghanistan was a disaster. Iraq was a disaster. Stop with the regime change stuff. And that's what he's back to. It's just, he's just stuck. And And
that's
that's
not just disasters, but incredibly costly. The national debt just eclipsed 38 trillion, estimated 8 trillion spent on the war on terror.
It's irrevocably changed the direction of our country, at least for now. I mean, when he went to Washington, the debt was 5 trillion. It's 39 trillion. And how does that manifest? It manifests with the generation 40 and younger unable to own a piece of the pie. We have a debt service on the national debt of $1 trillion that eclipses the current budget of the Department of War. And that's because, it's not just simply some of the calculation of what we spend on these wars, and they drag on forever, but all the human cost and the family dislocation, you can never really build that out. So yeah, it's a focus in life. Look, the Lord put us here. We were blessed to be in this country, and we should be working towards peace and prosperity and realizing this land of milk and honey here in South Carolina.
Let me ask you a direct question about some of these foreign entanglements.
Yeah.
Who do you think has more control over the direction of American policy, foreign policy? U.S. Congress or the state of Israel? Maybe Netanyahu. Who exerts more influence over that foreign policy?
Well, you look at, unfortunately, how many of the people in Congress seem to be beholden to various foreign interest groups. And, Israel is certainly the one that figures the largest, but many of these folks are in politics for themselves, and they've very, callously decided to make a decision there to take money and promote a war. So, look, I believe fully in Israel's right to exist. And, certainly it's an ally of ours, but we have to be American first. This is our country. This is my state, South Carolina. And every time I look at something, it's in that lens. What is this doing to protect people here in South Carolina? And that's how it always should be. We were warned long ago about dangerous entanglements abroad. And, respectively, we have the greatest soldiers and sailors and airmen and coasties and merchant marines. My grandfather, I come from a whole family of war fighters, right? Yeah. The people who built this country, who went off and fought the wars. My dad was a Vietnam vet. So, this is the tradition I come from. But when we ask those people, the best, to step into harm's way, it better be for a goal that's worth dying for. And that's Absolutely. What we've lost. It's like the latest, look, if President Trump's this incredible commander in chief, we have to back up and remember Lindsey Graham was the guy in 2016 calling the president unfit to be commander in chief. He said the Republican Party would be the end of it when he was nominated.
Called him a racist, a xenophobe, all that
everything.
Stuff.
And then he didn't stop when Trump won. Remember, he didn't even vote for Trump. He voted for Evan McMuffin, some deep state stooge. And then before Trump was even sworn in, he's holding hands with McCain, introducing that P dossier. So this is a guy who not only lost to Trump and then spent the next year delegitimizing Trump. He got up there and held hearings and said the Russians, hacked the election, and essentially carrying water for the Democrats.
Family.
He attacked Trump the family. Yeah, he said Trump Jr. Should be investigated for Russian collusion. So this is a guy who not only has no political antenna, but had he his way, there never would have been a Trump.
So why the hell is Trump endorsing?
That's one of the toughest questions, and certainly
he need his vote in Washington.
I believe I think it's all that. Look, he endorsed Lindsey back in February of 2025, but that was before I jumped in the race. I jumped in the race in August, 6 months. Mm-hmm. In some ways, in response to that, because we have to think about life after Trump. Yes, he's the greatest president of our lifetime, probably in the nation's history, but he's only going to be there for 2 more years. And this is about what happens next, the legacy. Lindsey Graham, he's two-faced. Everyone's seen this act before. And he had the president's signature legislation, the big, beautiful bill, sitting on his desk. And he essentially extorted, in my view, that endorsement in order to move this forward. But look, everything that he's done, we know this routine. Right. He, in 2021, As soon as the president was out the door, he was holding hands with the Democrats, pushing the DREAM Act, putting all those Biden people on the bench, every single one of them, the people who are now standing in the way of the president's agenda. This is a guy who was back in 2016, put both Obama Supreme Court. He was
in fact referred to as Barack Obama's best Republican ally by Democrats.
He's not a Republican, folks. I mean, the guy's living a lie. And we have to stop the madness. Like she says, it's a humiliation ritual that I'm standing up to say no more. We are going to concentrate on ourselves now. We're going to stop the flooding. You know, we are going to rebuild our roads. We are going to give our kids a shot at the 21st century.
Well, let me ask you a blunt question, though. You've got, according to the latest FEC reports, a little over $300,000 in your campaign. He's got 13+ million. Hundreds of millions beyond that if he needs it from the PACs funded by the military-industrial complex. Other than putting your beautiful wife on the trail with you, which I believe you should do at every opportunity.
Bringing baby.
Yeah. How do you compete with that? That is just, how do you compete with that?
Well, you know, it's a different landscape. At some point, that money is staggering, but there, you know, this is almost biblical in a way. And you know, the David v. Goliath comparison. Look, that money is dirty money. This is blood money. This is money that are essentially kickbacks for a lot of people who do business. When you're doling out the billions, they're going to throw some millions your way. This is not the heart and soul of South Carolina saying, thank you for building, you know, I-73. It's like, no, this guy doesn't even produce anything for us. This is a lot of out-of-state money, out-of-country money, quite frankly. So how are we competing? We're going to do 200 plus events in the next 3 months. We're moving all over the state. You know, 3 events yesterday. We're sitting down with you, but it's palm to palm. It's asking people for their vote, listening to them, and then actually proposing a vision for 21st century South Carolina. It's saying, let's get back to what made this country great. And I'm working for you now. This is your Senate seat, South Carolina. It's not Paul Dan standing up because he wants to be senator. It's Paul Dan standing up because we can't take this anymore. This is like, we are running out of runway here in this republic. This man wants to start endless wars again. And meanwhile, like, our schools are failing. I'm going to bring the money back to the schools. You drive by these buildings, you're like, that's abandoned. No, that's actually in use. And you see the more of the back roads in South Carolina, the madder I get. People's roofs are falling in. There's no excuse for the way we should be living so much richer and fuller lives than we do.
Mary Helen, when you're on the trail with your husband, traveling across the state, talking with people, seeing them where they are, what stands out to you? What do you feel about where South Carolina is, where we could be? As you talk to people, what are their concerns? And then what strikes you about those conversations you have with those folks?
I see a lot of hope. I see people that have thought that we had to accept Graham because, even though we hate him, because he was the only option. And when Paul gets in front of them, I see him turning entire rooms. I see those people going home to their families and to their friends and to their networks and saying, Paul is the real deal. He is here to fight for South Carolina. He's talking about the closure of the Georgetown paper mill. He's talking about flooding and our schools and our children and us. And they're coming to Paul, and they're so excited and happy because he is a man of great integrity. He is a problem solver. I mean, he has those 2 degrees from MIT. He has the UVA law degree. He actually knows the landscape in Washington, but that's not his focus. His focus is at home. So he's this rare combination, I think, of a problem solving person that has integrity, but also courage. And courage is very contagious. And, in my business, I always say good posture is contagious, right? Because it makes you sit up higher. But courage is contagious too. And when people see Paul standing up and fighting against the machine of Lindsey, because he's just the face of a political machine. I mean, who knows what he actually believes his whole life, how much of it is he even showing the people of South Carolina? He's not honest with us. He isn't real with us about pretty much anything from what I can see, except how much he loves foreign land. And so he's giving them that hope. And I see him inspiring people, all ages.
Yeah. Do you feel the frustration with Graham when you talk to folks that
Totally. I mean,
how can you not be mad about Georgetown paper? This is emblematic. You thought maybe the deindustrialization was over. We arrested it. No, like 700 jobs are gone in Georgetown in this past year. They're shutting down the mill that operated for 90 years. Intergenerationally, people made their lives around that. And that's not coming back unless somebody pushes it to come back. We need to be bringing 21st century technology, doing clean paper plants, but we also need to be supporting these industries and not letting them walk out. I was at Hartsville last night, and they're describing how the IT group at Sunoco is now leaving to go to India, of all things. We need to be able to keep these jobs here at home. And that's where I want to take care of our youth. I'm proposing free college, 2-year technical college for every citizen in South Carolina. That's allowing this next generation to learn HVAC, to learn advanced robotics, to auto, IT, to be able to go right into industry and make the fourth generation industrial revolution happen, to bring these companies here, but also say to them, look, if you're doing business here, you're hiring our people. You're not going to walk off. And I'm going to be a guy who's going to fight for South Carolina and make sure, our employers are hiring South Carolinians.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit. You're obviously not the only candidate running against Lindsey Graham. We've had Mark Lynch in this studio. In fact, he busted out the guitar, Dylan. He's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that was fun.
I mean, Dylan's a hell of a guitar player. I mean, he seemed pretty cool, but I guess my question is, you guys seem to be on the same page with a lot of issues. Why can't y'all get together and kind of pool some resources here?
Hey, if he wants to get behind our campaign, I'm all for it. He has daddy's money, but look, I've been at this. I'm a America First warrior from the jump. I've been with President Trump since 2015. I helped him get elected in 2016. I worked in his first administration. I worked for Dr. Carson, at HUD and solving problems. I went and learned about the deep state and actually crushed it. I'm the guy who actually drained the swamp. So, it's, for me, this is somebody who's been toiling in the vineyards, helping Trump. I went down and fought 2020, the rigged and stolen election, been working on election integrity. It's not fantasy football. I'm not another 70-year-old standing up for the first time saying, hey, I think I could go to Washington and do this. You don't walk on Super Bowl Sunday and you've never taken a snap in the NFL. Like, there's the battles. I've been at every major MAGA battle. So that's, the promise here is I've led the movement and been able to get blocks and people ready to roll. So much of what President Trump's doing comes from the way I just spent the last 4 years. I've been kissing her and the kids goodbye for the last 7 years, journeying up every Monday, whether it be driving up from Fort Mill or taking a flight. 6 a.m. flight from Charleston.
Well,
but
Paul's
really,
an America First hero. He's proven, he's battle tested, but I think it's more than just concepts or ideas. This is a generational change moment for our party, for our state, for America First. And Paul is the face of that. And there's no getting around that. This is the battle here this is probably one of the biggest Senate races in the nation, and all eyes are on South Carolina, and they're on our people and on our great state. And
I'm known nationwide through the movement for really being an America First thought leader, but also a doer, someone who's brought the movement together. What the left thrives on is always dividing us, and I managed to really get us concrete solutions and really help President Trump have the building blocks to roll out day one. So, I've been dealing with DEI, or, people wonder now about the endangerment finding. Every day something that Trump's doing is something that had tripped across my desk 3-4 years ago. USAID. Most people never heard about it, but that was a group that many of us in the first administration swore we were going to take down, and we spent the next 4 years doing it. And there's President Trump put Mary Helen on the the Kennedy Center board, which is normally reserved for the billionaires, but it was really kind of a thank you for my exceptional service in the first administration. And obviously she's probably the leading performing artist in MAGA land, but
saw some great pictures of y'all at the Kennedy Center recently for an event.
So. Oh, we were at the Melania premiere.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
Cool.
And
honors in the fall. Yeah,
hanging out with Kiss at honors was really pretty cool.
It's been a lot of fun with our new chairman.
Yeah. So I think he's done extraordinary part of saying this is a vehicle for soft diplomacy, and that's the other problem. It's like, hey, Mary Helen. She's known worldwide. She hasn't told you so much, but she trained Natalie Portman for Black Swan. She became the face of bar fitness worldwide. We stood up a company that was online training with videos that were streamable and also remote training, which nowadays you see on Zoom, but we were doing it back in 2011. So she's an entrepreneur, sells in 130 countries. She's famous in Japan.
She's the draw. When we were going down to the first bourbon and brews thing down in Charleston, it was your wife. Everybody was talking about being there. You were kind of an afterthought.
I got the skills
here.
Yeah, I mean, it was more than just manimal. But I'm very proud of my wife, and this is what also is a point that she in herself breaks the ice with the wives and people internationally. Like, no longer you have a 70-year-old weirdo trooping across, halfway around the world, but somebody who actually his wife opens doors with the rest of the set there. So it could be a very important kind of delegation. But I'm focused here on home. That's what we really want to do.
Paul's always been so supportive of my career. When we first met and I was still dancing with the New York City Ballet, he worried over he wasn't trying to take me out on Friday night when I had a show, 2 shows on Saturday. He's like, well, wait, I'll see you on Sunday, which was my night off. He always let me excel and put my career, in a forefront when it at the times when I needed to do that. He was very supportive of my business, helped me a lot with building it, which I really appreciate. So
I'm her number one unpaid employee.
There you go.
When you run a small business, you never get a day off.
True.
So we're very.
I'm getting a signal from Dylan. He says we've got a interaction question. Dylan, what you got for us?
So, Paul, this is a little bit of a tough one, but a guy named Jack Mack of our audience says, the South Carolina primary electorate has reflexively voted for years for Lindsey. What makes you think that you're going to be able to overcome that?
Look, there's a rising up of the grassroots. People are ready for change. Lindsey was booed for 7 minutes straight in his own hometown of Pickens. And those boos didn't stop there. They went to Somerville. They carried on to Columbia. People are done. They just need hope that there's a viable challenger. And I'm the first viable challenger he's ever faced. So I will go, I don't see eye to eye with him because he's about a foot shorter than me, but I will go toe to toe with that. I'll take my shoes off if I have to, but on policy, whatever. And the point is, I am focused on South Carolina's future. That is all I want. I want to restart the Georgetown paper plant. I want to bring cotton. I want to bring steel back here. And I'm going to do everything in my damnedest to get justice for this opioids crisis. We're going to stop that Fauci. I'm going to bring him in an orange jumpsuit. That's what I'm promising the people. Actually, the stuff that we've all been waiting for, that we can't just take another 6 years of Lindsey Graham. It's like she said, a humiliation ritual. Like, people across the United States are rooting for this race. Mm-hmm. We're carrying the nation on our shoulders right now. This is, Lindsey Graham is not just bad for our state. He's bad for America.
Think about Charlie Kirk.
Well, Charlie Kirk, that's another example. Charlie Kirk, the president obviously endorsed Lindsey, but Charlie Kirk was having none of it. And he came to Myrtle Beach, North Myrtle Beach, the Alabama Theater, 2 weeks before he was assassinated, and told the entire assembly, South Carolina, you need a new United States senator. So this is somebody who helped Trump from the jump, got him, I believe, was a key component of President Trump's re-election here in 47, who was saying, no, I am for the future. And Lindsey Graham has to go. This is how we got in this rut to start with.
Let's talk a little bit about the president, because obviously his influence here in South Carolina is significant. His endorsement certainly carries plenty of weight with it. But I wanted to ask you, just this week, his poll numbers nationally have dipped to their lowest level of his second term, down 13.5%. That's his gap. He's underwater 13.5%, the worst of his second term in Washington. I'm fortunate. I'm in the business. I can be an agnostic on Donald Trump. But let me ask you this. Why do so many Republican politicians, particularly here in South Carolina, reflexively kiss his ass? Can we not find something the guy's done wrong? Can we not find something that he deserves to be criticized on? For example, endorsing this warmonger, perhaps in some deal to just secure his vote. And isn't that corrupt? Isn't that sort of the definition of the swamp mentality? Hey, I'm going to support you even though you suck, because I really need your vote to confirm these judges. I mean, how is that on the level?
It's a cynical play by many of these people because they don't believe in America first. Like, I believe Donald Trump's the greatest president of our lifetime, and possibly in this republic. But the reason is that he's an iconoclast, that he breaks the ground, and it's for us to fill in behind that. But many of these people are phonies. Lindsey Graham is exhibit one, right? This is a guy who kisses Donald Trump's ass at re-election time, but actually tries to serve him up on a platter the rest of the time. His sole motivation is war, and he's literally countermanding the president as we speak on foreign soil, you know, with whether it be Iran or upsetting the Ukraine peace. This is a problem. You know, the electorate, today's age, has their lives to contend with, right? It's very difficult just to make it through the day, paying the bills and the like. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the top line messaging where you can essentially fake it like Lindsey Graham. I think that what we need is leadership in the state that's going to focus on this state again. Yeah. And whether that's, you know, President Trump's going to leave office in 2 years. So it's really make your case now about the future and how you're really America first. And Lindsey can't do that at all. His record speaks for itself. He's Lindsey Grahamnesty after all. This is a guy who will grant mass amnesty if given another 6 years. He will be sure to cut Social Security benefits. Mm-hmm. This guy's coming after the seniors, and he's made that known before. And without Trump keeping him on a leash, this is what he's going to do.
One of the things I think everyone can, and again, well, I think everyone, I go on social media, Dylan, and I see all these guys reflexively defending the president on this. But one of the things I think everyone should agree that Trump has gotten wrong is the Epstein files, the ham-fisted, delayed, incomplete release of these documents. And you guys are parents, about to welcome another child into this world. You guys have seen some of the things that are in these documents, some of the names that are in these documents. How can we justify trying to sweep this under the rug? How can we justify trying to dismiss this as a hoax?
It's horrifying. You know, we're fighting a spiritual battle right now. There's good and evil, and this guy was certainly in that latter class. So, look, you know, you have to separate President Trump from all the administration, and not everyone in that group is as aligned with President Trump. You know, I don't think some people are misperforming, but you know, in the Epstein stuff is really,
it's so upsetting. I mean, Paul has always called for transparency for the releasing of the files, and I can say, as a woman, as a mom, as somebody who trained, you know, some of the most beautiful women in the world, hottest supermodels, many of whom were Victoria's Secret models. I know I saw how they were treated. It reminded me in some ways of how we were treated in the ballet, frankly, disposable, like property, like cattle. And it broke my heart for those women. And I know there's a connection between Victoria's Secret and the files, from what I understand. there's a very predatory billionaire who was their former CEO of Victoria's Secret, who turns out was a close associate, from my understanding of it, of Epstein. And, when I started looking into this stuff, Paul and I are friends with Congressman Tim Burchett. I don't know if you've seen that clip of him talking about it. He's a congressman from Tennessee and, a really good guy. And he's talking about how satanic it is and it's demonic. And it's like, you cannot unsee it. I mean, this is the stuff that as a parent, especially when you have daughters, it keeps you up at night, gives you nightmares. It's so deeply disturbing and deeply upsetting. When I started to look, and I can't go too deep into the Epstein stuff because I am pregnant, and it's just so upsetting.
Yeah.
And our heart breaks for the victims, and that were preyed upon. But when I started to look at it, there were names in there that I knew, like Natalie Portman is mentioned. She's a good friend of mine. I trained her for Black Swan. Nothing nefarious that she did. It's just her name is mentioned. Victoria's Secret is mentioned, and when I looked a little more closely, I was absolutely shocked, blown away to find out that one of the girls that he had groomed and preyed upon had actually purchased one of Ballet Beautiful's online workout videos. And, I never met her. She never came into the studio. Obviously, I never met Jeffrey Epstein. I had no connection whatsoever with him, but I was shocked to know that. And I thought, I wish that I had, I wished, God, what if she had come into the studio? We could have seen something. You could have, because as a woman, you have an instinct. All women have. It's different. Like we can feel things, and and you're thinking, what could I have helped? Would I have seen something? Would I have known? I mean, these women were preyed upon. And
up in New York, a lot of the circles.
It's just so disgusting.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's like you're, as a parent, it terrifies you. It's the kind of thing that I literally can't sleep over thinking about this stuff. And you're just, and there is a very, there's a very predatory aspect of that billionaire class of treating.
I mean, I think that's ultimately the revelation from the Epstein files, is that there is an Epstein elite that views us as cattle, and these are the same people, who put the opioids out to destroy rural America, the Sacklers. These are people, there's been no justice for them. These are the people behind the financial crisis of 2008, that everyone lost their houses and their jobs, and these people laughed. And they're, they go about life without any accountability, without any retribution. So that's what I'm going to Washington for. I'm going to get justice for us. Lindsey Graham goes on that Judiciary Committee, and he just bides his time. He was there as chairman for 2 years and just wrote strongly worded letters. This is time for us to use that oversight in Congress and actually get some justice.
You said accountability, though, and I wanted to point out one of the most prominent members of the Trump cabinet, Howard Lutnick, all over those files. And not only that, it is now documented that during his testimony, his confirmation, he lied about the extent to which he knew Jeffrey Epstein. How is, forget being all over the files. Okay, a lot of these things we know, there's degrees of credibility of the allegations. Certain people are alleged to have done horrible things, and then it turned out not to be true. Others, there's a lot of concern about whether it is true. But this guy lied about it. I mean, there's no debating that he lied. How is this guy still in the Trump cabinet? And why is Trump not insisting on the accountability you just talked about?
It's a distraction. I mean, we can't let people become distractions to the agenda. And certainly this is about America first. There's a lot of qualified people I think could work in commerce. Secretary Lutnick lived next door. They shared a wall. And the reports are that he actually purchased his home in some wise from an entity controlled by Epstein or some effect to that. So this is kind of known, but this is what I'm saying. Like, President Trump is a great president, and we trust a lot in it. But I think it's important to constantly reassess. We have a limited amount of time here in power, and the clock is running off. And meanwhile, Where are the orange jumpsuits? Where are these arrests? Like, let's get at it, folks. I'm sorry. I was the guy who actually took over a federal agency and returned it to the president. They sent me to the Office of Personnel Management, which runs the 2.2 million federal workers. And essentially, the federal workers had taken charge of this place. The president only appoints 4,000 out of 2.2 million. And here the career staff had basically run the federal government and was keeping all the political appointees at bay. So I know how to get in and shake things up. And that's what I think they need to do. And Department of Justice, that's the last frontier. There's a reason people hate lawyers, but that's stocked with very clever, progressive lawyers. And it has not been called out to this day. And that's a problem. Look, it was only 3 years ago we were all locked down. I was with President Trump during the low points when everyone walked away from the guy. I saw him off at Joint Base Andrews on January 20, 2021, when we were all masked up and we didn't sprinkle to the wind. And the reality is, if we don't get the upper hand right now and clear this stuff out, they're going to come back and then some against us. So this is why it's important to keep moving and play with some urgency.
I think also why this race is so important.
Absolutely. Look, Lindsey Graham was standing in place. I think he's been running interference for the deep state the whole time. He's certainly, he voted for Wray. He voted for Mueller in protecting Mueller. Comey is skating away. He got away with it, folks. But Lindsey Graham could have gone after him and used that subpoena power. He never did. And that's why we need politicians who are angry. Look, my dad was a great man in medicine. And during this period, he, quote, died. He had Parkinson's, but dad was locked away in assisted living for a year. And I got under COVID, and then I got to see my dad in a moon suit. Okay. Before he died, and he expired 7 days. One time they let me in, and then they offered, well, you can pick up an iPad and watch your dad die remotely. This is god awful what happened to us 4 years ago. I have a fire in my belly to get retribution for this. And that's what we need in Washington. It's time to get serious. People are dying of opioids. Entire families are ripped apart. 50, I believe, veterans commit suicide a day through the U.S. because they can't cope with these endless wars and the fallout. I mean, they saw what happened in Afghanistan. Imagine watching your buddies die and then come over and see us turn over Bagram Air Force Base and beat tail out of Afghanistan like that.
Yeah, but Lindsey Graham said a few of those are worth it. It's worth it to achieve whatever.
We have to change, folks. It's on us. And to Dylan's point, it's like, no, this is entirely doable. People have to understand they've been dispiriting us for years. That's part of the playbook. Our polling is really showing good acceleration. Like she said, we're getting in. Every palm I press, people are like, thank God you're doing this. Yes. Thanks for standing up.
And you had a big campaign shakeup recently. Is that correct?
We did. We brought in some killers here. They got guys from the J.D. Vance 22 Senate campaign and the presidential turn in 24. So look, this is the same. President Trump picked Vance for a reason, but when he picked J.D., he made it more of a hole in the Senate. We need a America First Legion, a guard. And you see that with Ken Paxton in Texas, the promise of really swapping out the worst rhino with a top America First guy. And that's why this race is probably the most important in the country. It's a bellwether about whether our movement goes forward or if we sink back into the swamp, into the clutches of a guy who never wanted Trump, who's playing the long game and thinks he's going to pull this one off.
So last week, Fitz News exclusively reported, and then it was later picked up by Axios, that former two-term South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford was contemplating a bid for this seat as well. My question, I actually have it written down, Dylan. Very simple. Mark Sanford, WTF? Question mark. Your thoughts?
Look, we need generational change. That's the bottom line. We can't have retreads. This is about 21st century South Carolina, whether we go forward and and give our next generations the chance that their ancestors fought for. And that's what I'm promising to do. I am a problem solver, and I'm a forward leader. This is
He's a fierce warrior.
A fierce warrior, and I've fought. I had quote legend status in the first admin because I did not bend. I'm a guy who says what he wants and then goes and gets it, and that's what I'm promising to do. Many of these problems grew up over their leadership periods, and there's pluses and minuses. Look, I want somebody who's going to salute the heritage of this state, but also bring it into 21st century. I'm going to raise the battle flag back on the state capitol. That's what I'm waiting for.
So no Appalachian Trail hikes over here.
No, for me, no. I mean, look, I got diapers to change. The first thing I get home, I got the honey-do list. So that, I'm grounded here. This is Lindsey trooping off halfway around the world, and Governor Sanford taking long walks. I'm here to be with the kids, at the sports games and church on Sundays, and really be with the people, hearing the problems and going right out in Washington.
What do you think it says, though? And we talk about Graham and his character and or lack thereof. What do you think it says, though? Mark Sanford's youngest kid, Lindsey Graham, is his godfather. And now Sanford talking about running against Graham. I mean, that's like, how bad of a godfather do you have to be for that to happen?
Well, I hear this Lindsey Graham talk about, they call me Uncle Lindsey in Iran and this and that. And it's like, I'm just like, you're the sort of uncle I would never leave my kids alone with. Wow. So look, I am outside the system. I'm here to cut the head off the snake and give people back their Senate seat. Mm-hmm. And more than that, it's really to get this whole government system focused on the people again. Mm-hmm. And look, there's some noble servants in Colombia and people fighting the good fight, but our state, we have to deal with some of the corruption. We need to get money back to the schools. We need to put money in the pockets of the farmers. We need to stop Georgetown Paper from closing. We need to go to Sunoco and say, no, you don't get to move those IT people. What do you need to keep them and hire more? Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm going to do. Like, let's solve our problems. Let's stop the flooding in Marion County. Let's stop the flooding in the Low Country. Let's make sure that our seniors are not, basically shut-ins trying to pay these bills. Everyone here upstate, I know you open up your electric bill, it's like 10 times higher. These data centers, we have to stop the sprawl. We have to stop taking up farmland with solar panels. The Chinese should not own an acre of farmland in this state. Let's get Chinese out of Smithfield ham. Let's actually do things that matter for everyday South Carolinians. Put a third lane on 95. This stuff should have been done 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. This is the stuff that basically maps coincidentally with Lindsey Graham's time in Washington.
About to say there's a bit of a parallel there. Yes. When he came into the U.S. Congress. Paul, you've been very generous with your time. Mary Helen, you as well.
Thank you so much.
I know you guys have got a lot going on as this campaign starts to ramp up. You are now less than 4 months away. Yeah. Tell us just real quick before you go, next 4 months, how does David slay Goliath?
Look, it's telling people what we're doing. We're going to put a shop class in every middle school and high school. We're going to build a 21st century homesteading act that lets our next generation have a piece of the pie to basically retake rural South Carolina, put down roots and invest that down payment over time, or go into our cities. I'm going to offer a 21st century crime bill. We have to take it down crime. Finally, I'm going to get the answers. I'm going to be a guy who's the top fighter for Trump. And I can guarantee you that I will get the illegals back home, and I will never cut Social Security. So this is what I'm fighting for, South Carolina. Ultimately, we're going to make the case that I'm for us and Lindsey's for they, them.
With a new baby on the way.
And I was going to say, now, how long are you going to be sidelined from campaign duties with the new little one? Are you guys going to both jump
I'm a very Maha mom. I've breastfed all of our other kids. So, my general rule for the first year is like, where mom goes, the baby goes. So when I'm with Paul, the baby will be there, and I'll be
awesome.
nursing, and he'll probably be changing some diapers.
That's right. That's right.
No, it's exciting. It's a blessing. We've always gone at life full tilt, and that's what when Mary Helen and I were brought together by God, we recognized that we could make ourselves better, and that's the promise of two flesh becoming one. So we have a deeply spiritual connection. She's what Mama Swans, we mate for life, I guess swans do. So we are we're in it to win it. This is all about the future. And I stood up. I could not hold my nose any longer. The work that she's done, that I've done, that my mother-in-law has done, everyone in this family has pushed to make this happen. We made a commitment, not last year, but for the last 10 years to help America First happen under Trump. And when it got knocked down, to keep coming at it. And that's what we do. I never give up. I keep fighting. In South Carolina, you're going to get a real fighter in Paul Dan. So I'm applying for this job, and I'm asking for your vote.
Well, if it boils down to, as you mentioned, childless warmonger and the beautiful children you guys are cranking out, I think you got a fighting chance here, Paul. But I want to thank both of you so much for taking the time to do this. Mary Helen, especially you for
being
with us tonight. And
this was really fun. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet your wife and your little crew.
That's right.
Not so little crew.
You're giving her a
couple laps on me there.
I don't think we're gonna make it to 8, but
giving her a run for her money.
I always wanted 5 children, so
we should recognize Dale Earnhardt tonight. That's a special because he is the spirit animal of our campaign.
That's right.
And we are going for the checkered flag. So we are going to keep racing, and we'll be all over. Check us out. We're moving all over the state. If you're listening to this, we're going to be in your town soon. So
it's pauldans.com.
Come out and say hello. pauldans.com. Look, you heard the 13 million. Donate to our campaign. $20, $100, whatever you can do. We're throwing Lindsey out, and we're getting our message out, and it's really taking off. So help us continue to do that.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Folks, we'll be back in the studio next week for another edition. Jermaine Johnson, Democrat candidate for governor of South Carolina. He'll be joining us for another edition of FITSPolitic. Until then, we'll catch you next time.